The hospital walls felt like they were closing in on me. Beeping machines, hurried footsteps, and the muffled whispers of doctors surrounded me. My baby, my little Lena, was in that room, fighting for her life. I clung to the nurse as she gently pulled me away from the bed. Is she going to die? My voice cracked, thick with tears. Please, tell me she's going to be okay. The nurse hesitated, her face a mask of uncertainty. I hope so, she whispered, rubbing slow circles on my back. But her comfort was useless against the storm inside me. Everything blurred. My knees buckled. My lips felt numb. I feel lightheaded, I murmured. The nurse quickly grabbed a chair, propping my feet up. Slow, deep breaths, she ordered. I obeyed, forcing air into my lungs. The room steadied, but the terror in my heart only grew stronger. Then, the door burst open. Evan rushed in, breathless, his face pale. What's happening? I collapsed into his arms, sobbing. Lena's not okay. She might not make it. His body stiffened. How did this happen? I didn't know. It had all started with a simple cold. 5 days earlier, Lena had woken up with a runny nose and mild sniffles. I don't feel good, Mom, she said, rubbing her nose with the back of her hand. Me neither, I groaned, feeling sluggish myself. My throat was scratchy, my body heavy. Do you want to stay home? I asked, hoping she'd say yes. She shook her head. No, it's the last 2 days of school. I don't want to miss saying goodbye to my friends, I hesitated. All right. But call me if you feel worse, I promise, she said. I should have insisted she stay home. The school called in the afternoon. Lena's fine, the receptionist assured me. She doesn't want to go home, I sighed in relief. Maybe I was overthinking things. The next morning, Lena still wanted to go to school. I'll be fine, she said. But her voice was hoarse, her face a little pale. I let her go. Wednesday morning, things changed. She woke up coughing, a deep, painful sound that rattled her chest. It hurts. She whimpered, pressing a hand to her ribs. It's just from coughing, baby, I reassured her. I set her up on the couch with a blanket and some cartoons, but as the hours passed, she barely moved. By lunchtime, my worry grew. She's breathing shallow, I told Evan. Should I take her to the ER? He frowned. Let's wait. She's probably just got what you have, I wanted to believe him. At 4 p.m., Lena got up for the bathroom, then vomited. She came out shaking, tears in her eyes. That was it. We're going to the hospital, I said, grabbing my keys. Lena didn't argue. That scared me the most. At the ER, the nurse clipped an oxygen monitor on Lena's finger. Her brow furrowed. This can't be right, she muttered. The reading? 75%. A normal level was between 95 to 100%. She'd be blue if her oxygen was this low, the nurse whispered, trying again. But every probe gave the same number. My daughter was starved of oxygen, and I hadn't even noticed. They rushed an oxygen mask over her face. My heart pounded. This was serious. I had waited too long. By morning, X-rays showed the truth. She has pneumonia, the doctor said. The lower parts of both lungs are collapsing, from a cold. I asked, my voice trembling. She tested positive for rhinovirus, but that's just a common cold, the doctor sighed. Sometimes, it turns into something much worse. I gripped Lena's tiny hand. She looked so small in that hospital bed, her chest rising and falling with the oxygen mask. We weren't going home anytime soon. By Thursday night, Lena seemed better, her oxygen levels improved. She even smiled at me. Are you sure she's sick? Family joked when they visited. For the first time in days, I let myself breathe. Maybe we had turned a corner. By Friday morning, she was drinking water. The nurses whispered about discharging her soon. At noon, she vomited again. Everything changed, her oxygen plummeted. She gasped, her lips turning blue, alarms blared. Nurses shouted, Lena, breathe, baby. I cried, she was drowning in air. Doctors moved fast. We need a CPAP machine, someone said. They strapped a tight mask over Lena's face. She panicked, clawing at it. Let them help you, baby. I begged. She couldn't hear me. She's not breathing well enough, a doctor said. A nurse grabbed me. Kiss her now, then they pulled me away. We need to intubate, a doctor said. I nodded, numb. They pushed a tube down her throat, connecting her to a ventilator. A machine would breathe for her now. They transferred her to a bigger hospital, one with a special ICU for kids like her. The whole ride there, I prayed. Saturday morning, Lena's x-rays were nearly all white. Her lungs weren't working. Doctors huddled, whispering. We should try taking her off the ventilator, one said. My stomach dropped. What if she couldn't breathe on her own? They removed the tube. Silence. Then, Lena blinked. She inhaled. She smiled. I sobbed. She was fighting. Lena's body was weak. The days of lying still in the ICU had drained her strength. Even lifting her hand felt like moving a mountain. On the first morning after coming off the ventilator, the nurses encouraged her to sit up. Come on, sweetheart, one said gently. Let's see if you can sit for just a few seconds. Lena's eyes were still heavy with exhaustion, but she nodded. I sat beside her, gripping her hand. You can do this, baby. Slowly, the nurse helped her up. Lena wobbled, her body trembling. She let out a small gasp. It's okay, the nurse assured her. We've got you. After 5 seconds, she slumped back onto the pillow, breathless. Tears welled in my eyes, but I forced a smile. That was amazing, sweetheart. We'll try again later, she barely whispered. Okay, it was a small step. But it was a step. Each day was a battle. Lena could only whisper. Her throat was sore from the ventilator. Even swallowing water took effort. The doctors said her lungs were healing, but I still watched her like a hawk. Every cough made my heart stop. She's improving, the nurses told me. She just needs time, but time felt like torture. At night, I barely slept. I watched her chest rise and fall, terrified it might stop. Evan took turns with me, but I knew he was just as scared. We held hands in the dark, whispering prayers we weren't sure would be answered. We had gotten her this far. But would she make it all the way? On the third day after the ventilator, the physical therapist arrived. It's time to try standing up, she said gently. Lena blinked at her. I don't know if I can, I squeezed her hand. I'll be right here, with help. Lena slowly placed her feet on the floor. Her knees shook. She gritted her teeth. She pushed up. She stood. For 2 seconds. Then she collapsed back into the bed, exhausted. But the therapist clapped. That was perfect. We'll try again later, Lena smiled weakly. It was small. But it was progress. Every day, Lena got stronger. By the end of the week, she was taking a few shaky steps with the help of a walker. I hate this thing, she mumbled, frowning at it. You'll be running soon, I joked, trying to lighten the mood. She rolled her eyes. I just want to go home, I swallowed hard. Me too, baby, but the doctors weren't ready to send her home yet. She still needed oxygen at night. She still got tired too quickly. And there was always the fear, what if she got worse again? Just when things seemed to be improving, Lena spiked a fever. My heart stopped. Not again, I whispered, gripping her hand. The doctors ran tests. They checked her lungs. She's okay, they reassured me. It's just a small infection. We'll treat it right away, but I couldn't shake the fear. What if it got worse? What if she ended up back in the ICU? I didn't sleep that night. I sat by her bed, praying the fever would break. By morning, it finally did. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. She was still fighting. After 10 days, the doctors finally gave us the news we had been waiting for. You can take her home, the doctor said with a smile. I burst into tears. Lena grinned. Really, there were rules, of course. She needed rest. She had to avoid getting sick again. But none of that mattered. We were going home. When we walked through the front door, Lena's little sisters screamed with joy. They ran to hug her, but I stopped them. Gentle. I warned. She's still healing, Lena laughed. I'm not glass, Mom, but her voice was soft, and I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. That night, we curled up on the couch, Christmas lights twinkling around us. I held her close, inhaling the scent of her hair. 4 days ago, I wasn't sure she'd ever be here again. Now, she was home. Alive. And that was the greatest gift of all. Lena bounced back faster than I expected. Within a week, she was walking without help. Within 2 weeks, she was playing with her sisters again. By the time New Year's arrived, it was like nothing had ever happened. But I knew better. I had seen her at her weakest. I had held her hand as she fought for every breath. I had almost lost her. And now, I would never take a single moment for granted again. Lena had fought. And she had won.